Guts and Grit Podcast. Podcast where we discuss overcoming the odds, resiliency, and never giving up. Join us each week as hosts John Melson and Mark Renahan discuss coming back from failure and never quitting. Guts and Grit, it's go time. Welcome to another edition of Guts and Grit. We are on episode 19. I am your host, Mark Renahan. You're going to have to forgive me today if I am a little nervous. We have an incredible special guest that I still can't believe is on right now. Anyway, of course, I am with Sergeant Melson coming to us from Fort Benning. Today's guest, for those of you who are watching, is a Ultimate Fighting Champion legend beyond belief. He comes from the incredible Gracie Jiu Jitsu family. I believe your father was Elio Gracie, one of the founders of Gracie Jiu Jitsu. Their style has been adapted throughout the world. Royce travels with his brothers, and they have a variety of studios. I'm losing it here. But John, how are you today? And everybody, welcome the one and only Royce Gracie. Royce, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're very, very excited. John, would you like to say hello?
Hey, Royce, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for what you guys do, man.
No, thank you for coming on. So, Royce, we like to just jump right into the show when we get on the Guts and Grit podcast. And today we wanted to talk about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. I know it's everyone's heard of it. A lot of people know what it is. Some don't. But I wanted to start off. You're originally from Rio de Janeiro. And what age were you when you started Jiu Jitsu?
Man, on my family, we started jiu-jitsu as soon as we can walk. Probably even before that, as we're crawling. We're already, the mats are our playground.
Now, so how many brothers did you grow up with? And were you all doing jiu-jitsu?
My Uncle Carlos and my father. Uncle Carlos had 21 kids, 11 boys, 10 girls. And my father had 9 kids, 7 boys, 2 girls. Yes. All the boys were involved in jiu-jitsu.
So do you guys have any brother fights?
Some were just teaching, some were fighting, but everybody, one way or the other, involved, yes.
All right, so how old were you, Grace? Sorry, Royce, I'm losing it here. How old were you when you guys first decided to take Gracie Jiu-Jitsu nationwide? Like, whose idea was it? And, you know, what did you do to get that out so that the whole world could experience it?
Well, the whole thing started back in Brazil with my father and my uncles. It was once they learned the art of jiu-jitsu, it became a quest for them to find out which style is the best. So a lot of people took us the wrong way and says, oh, the Gracies are arrogant. They're trying to put down the other styles. No, we were in a quest to find out which style is the best. And been doing this in Brazil for many years. And then my brother Rorion came to America, and the whole quest started all over again. Because all the styles are claiming my style is better than the karate, is better than kung fu, kickboxing is better than boxing. Everybody had that that question. So my brother just created the first UFC to answer that question. He got the best boxers, the best kickboxer, wrestler, judo, karate, taekwondo, kung fu, to put it in a tournament style and to fight 3 fights in one night. It was the first one. The first UFC was an 8-man tournament.
So yeah, it was. Now, I remember watching it. I'm going to be honest here. So at the first UFC, a bunch of us gathered at my friend Frank's house, and we were watching it. My friend Frank, is Frankie D, John, was into martial arts at the time, and he knew about you beforehand. So when we started to watch the tournament, he told all of us, oh, wait till you see this guy. He's going to win the whole thing. Now, again, with zero disrespect, at the time, there was, UFC had no weight classes. It, like you said, it was 3 fights a night. So I was looking at some of these apes that you were going up against, and I'm like, there's no way that this, and he was like, I'm telling you, this guy is going to crush the place. You watch. So I was like, it's going to be over. And in fight after fight, you would prove me wrong. And then the next one would come, and I would say, he got lucky with that one, this guy. And you guys proved right away that that Gracie Jiu Jitsu was the, best out there, I would like to say.
It was the most complete style of martial art, because everybody all the other styles had a limit. Like a karate guy, if you get in a clinch and take him to the ground, he didn't know what to do. A boxer, the same thing. A wrestler, you pin him on the ground, that's it, the match is over. Not for Gracie Jiu Jitsu. The fight goes on until somebody quits.
Now, John, I know that, in the Army there, you guys have done some training, and they've actually brought Gracie Jiu Jitsu into your training. Can you talk about that for a second?
Well, I wanted to ask Royce if he could talk about it a little bit, because I know earlier on in the Global War on Terror, the Army really started to develop its combatives program. And before the Army combatives program, word on the street is, and I just want to get confirmation from him himself, is that the Gracies got involved with developing a combatives technique with the Ranger Regiment early on. And I'd like to, if there was any truth to that, if you could share a little bit with that.
It was they used to come to LA and learn. Start with actually Matt Larson, and then he would brought us in to 2nd Battalion, 1st, 3rd headquarters, and we were doing teaching the top guys. But then he's like, no, hold on, let's restructure and start teaching from the beginning, from when they sign up. So yes, Matt Larson was big on the setting up the Army combatives. So now, after the Army Rangers accept, the whole Army accept the new Army combatives, let's say. But it's all based on Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes. Yeah, that's the foundation, is the Jiu-Jitsu. And, years ago, in another lifetime, I had been a Boston police officer for a short time. And prior to that, I used to study Taekwondo, karate, Muay Thai, and they started to bring in Jiu-Jitsu style. It was at a dojo one step beyond. And Gary Eblin, he was the self-defense trainer for the Boston Police Department. Him and my cousin, Scott Doherty, used to train and teach Jiu-Jitsu at One Step Beyond. And I got a lot of benefit out of that. Whereas the boxing, I was out here, the kicks, I was out far, come in close, it was the Muay Thai, and then go ahead and the grapple and takedowns with the Jiu-Jitsu. And to this day, I still use it, and I train that with my soldiers as well.
For the viewers that don't know, the difference is a boxer, he either hit the person or he doesn't. So as a police officer, you're going to hit the person, he's going to sue you back, and he's going to win, because you're not allowed to hurt the suspect. So it's more humane the way we do it, because we don't rely on punching and kicking. We rely on subdue the opponent without hurting. The hurting is more of an option. If depend what he's doing, depend how much he's resisting, I can apply a submission and put some more pressure on it, pain compliance, but don't have to break it, don't have to choke anybody out. It's more of a pain compliance. Instead, a karate guy would either he hits or kick, or he doesn't, or he can't do it. There's no halfway, there's no in between.
Yep. So I got a question. I know Mark talked about, when we were younger guys, we were watching the UFC up and coming. For me, and I think for Mark as well, one of the big rivalries, if it's a soft spot, I don't mean to bring it up, but man, you and Ken Shamrock, you guys would battle. What was that like? Well,
Ken Shamrock was supposed to be the favorite to win UFC 1, because everybody was still looking at physiques, not at this. So Ken Shamrock is about 220 pounds, built like the Greek god, man. The guy was like chiseled, and I'm 178. So I come in hiding underneath the gi. So I come in and I choke him out the first fight in less than a minute. And that's when I choke him out, and he tapped, I let go, and he tried to continue. And I whisper on his ear nicely, "Go ahead, keep going." And I look at the ref and I said, "Ref, let it go. We're going to continue this fight." And that's when Ken Shamrock let go of my leg, and he goes, "You know what? You're right. I quit. I tap. You win." So, but then he want to come back and want to do it again. So we fought a second fight it was 36 minutes to a draw. And then we just had the third fight. He insisted on having a third fight with me about 5 years ago. pulled me out of retirement. And then I ended up, it was my last fight, my first knockout.
Wow.
I was going to say, when we go back to the UFC, to me, one of the most impressive wins was there was I think he was a judo guy named Remco Pardo or something, and he was like 6'5", 290, and then this is the when at first he had just clobbered some guy prior with a vicious elbow strike. And then again, he was tapped in like a minute. And after that is when I was like, all right, I'm sold. No one's ever beaten this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And it's actually, to me, it's fantastic that they use it to train the military, because, not only do we have badass guys with, John trains them with the weapons, now they're getting the best, training for self-defense. So that's pretty cool. Royce, do you guys ever train law enforcement across the country?
At the time, by the way, going back to the Remco Pardo over here,
yep,
beat Geraldo Gordo on UFC 1 on the finals. And Geraldo Gordo went back to Holland and specifically trained Remco Pardo to beat me, because Remco Pardo was a judo champion at the time and taught him some stand-up. And then I fought, and when I beat Remco Pardo, Geraldo Gordo went back to Holland. He told me that when he went back to Holland, he's like, we got to learn this stuff. We definitely got to learn this stuff. And about the Army combatants, I remember going to Ranger Battalion. At the time, his name was Colonel. He was a Colonel McChrystal. He wasn't even a general yet. He was a Colonel McChrystal. And he came up to me and it's like, my soldiers will never use this. And I look at him, I was like, so why did you hire me? He's like, I hired to teach them confidence, but they'll never get in a close combat like this. Back then, the war was far away they're shooting from far away from each other. So he's like, my soldiers will never use it. I was like, I want you to build confidence, he says. I said, fair enough. I can give them enough confidence. If they get in a hand-to-hand, they can defend themselves. But then years later, the war changed and became so close quarter combat that the guys end up choking out and knocking out more people than they shot.
Yeah, that's it. So, Royce, I also heard a rumor at one point that they were talking about maybe you fighting Mike Tyson. Did that ever happen? Or what do you think would have happened if that ever happened? I had to ask.
Mike Tyson actually accepted, but his lawyers and his management people did not accept, because Mike Tyson was in the prime of his time on boxing, and if he would have lose, it would have been a disaster for boxing. So, but Mike Tyson wanted to do it, and he told me, we met before several times, and he's like, man, I'm glad I never got to fight you.
I would have loved to have watched that. So
getting a clinch, take me down, it's like, it would be over for boxing for me. And yes, I do travel all over the country teaching law enforcement, by the way.
Excellent.
I've actually got a course coming up in Kansas next week. I'll be teaching in Kansas. This will be I teach the instructors, and then they go back to their department and teach the police officers of their department. And I got 2 courses coming up in North Carolina, last week in November, first week in December.
Excellent. Now, not only, so I know a lot of guys jiu-jitsu isn't just great for, self-defense and all that. It's kind of like, I know guys who kind of use it as a way of life. Like we had a guest on who was an LA police officer named Nako Nolan. I know he's a huge jiu-jitsu guy, but like Johnny, for some of your guys or just veterans when they get out of the service, don't you think that jiu-jitsu is like a good way to kind of, keep mental health? I mean, it's great workout, it's combat to a point. You know what I mean, John?
So I got lots of friends, to include myself. Like they'll put time on the mat, as they say, Royce, right? Hey, let's go put time on the mat, and they'll just roll. And we'll spend a couple of hours just going through holds and rolling around. And it's such an awesome workout. And it just, your mind has to be focused in what you're doing. You can't be up rolling around on the mat and you're thinking about something going on back at work, or some issue you have with your old lady, your girlfriend, or whatever. You got to stay focused on what's going on, because you can end up getting hurt really bad. You roll the wrong way. You're not paying attention to what what the other guy is doing to you. And it's a great workout because it gets you to, like, I don't want to say meditate, but it's almost a way where you can isolate your thoughts into that moment and just work on and focus on what's going on right there. And it gives you a little bit of an escape of what's going on around you.
Actually, I heard that there's somebody was saying that they use jiu-jitsu for therapy. Yes. I was like, that's a good way to put it.
That's what my ex-brother-in-law did.
Royce, how often do you still, I guess, I mean, I know you train other instructors. Do you still roll around a lot, and do you still get into it hardcore?
Do I look like I'm out of shape?
No, not at all, actually. You look like you're in a... Don't do that to me.
Oh, Mark.
Do you...
Call me older.
Well, when I said I was in high school watching you, I'm very young, so you're just as young also. So my next question is, now, when you were... I had to ask this one, too. Growing up with your brothers, did you guys always, I know, like Hickson, Hoyler, do you guys ever fight each other still? And who would win out of all of them? Is there a brother who's the best in your opinion?
We would spar.
Yeah.
We wouldn't fight. We would spar. We would roll. It's like, yeah, it was not really a fight.
I can imagine. All right, Royce, listen, I know you've got an incredible busy schedule, and we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. But I did want to point out that I know you have a son who's joined the military now, and I wanted to say congratulations on that. You must be very proud. John, I'm sure, is very happy about that.
I'm a big fan of the military and the service people in general and law enforcement. Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Johnny, do you have any last words for Mr. Gracie before we let him get on his way?
One quick question, Royce. UFC 1, how old were you when you had that fight?
26.
26?
Yes, I was 26. But, I mean, there was other brothers. They were older, younger. They all have more fights than me. But I never had a fight before. And that's why my father put me in. Because he knew I wasn't the violent type. So other brothers and cousins, they would have done the same thing, but they would have might end up beating up the opponent and taking blood out, cutting them up and making them bleed. And so my father's order was like, no, you cannot hit your opponents. Do not hurt them. Subdue them. Show just clean technique. I was like, but father, they're going to be fighting and swinging at me. There's bare knuckle and no gloves. And he's like, do not hurt them. That was totally different orders than my mother. My mother was like, I want you to send them to the hospital. I want you to see blood. It's like the mother was the mean one, not the father. Your father doesn't know what he's doing. Doesn't know what he's talking about. I was like, Mom, that's Eddie Grace. She's like, I don't care. I want to see some blood.
Mamas don't play.
Yeah. Oh, now we know where you got it from, Royce. Now we know where you got it from. Well, Royce, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I know your schedule is incredibly busy. For those of you out there who don't know anything about Royce, you can check out his website, which is www.roycegracie.com. For you Americans, Royce is actually spelled with an R, RoyceGracie.com. He is also on Instagram at The Real Royce. Johnny, do you have any final words for the one and only UFC legend, Royce Gracie?
Royce, so I always tell my soldiers and everybody that works out and trains with me the same thing all the time, to have a purpose of what we're doing when we're training, being in the military and in law enforcement, right? So when we train, get your mind right? And have it in your head that when we're training to be hard to kill.
Everything's possible. Discipline to get up and go do it.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we had the one and only Royce Gracie. We'll see you all next week. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Royce.
Thank you, Royce.
Thank you.
Guts and Grit. Like, subscribe, comment, share.